putt from Anthony Barella. He ties the lead all square with Eagle McMahon through 13 holes. Likely be a drop-in for par, and he can close out his first ever major. Oh my goodness, final, what just happened on 16?
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 European Open.
Hello and welcome back to coverage of the 2023 Finnish National Disc Golf Championships. We are excited to be bringing you round 2 front 9 MPO lead card coverage, brought to you by MDG Media. We are here at Mukkula Disc Golf Park. Some contrasting front and back nines with both technical and power shots in a country ripe with talent, some of the best players and courses in the world right now. I'm Connor Wood, and with me, Elias Luukkonen.
What is up, Connor, and what is up, viewers? We had a pretty high level of play in round 1 and gonna continue on that track, hopefully, as we take a look at the players. Niklas Anttila, player from our first round feature card, shooting a clean 8 under round. Very solid starting score, and looking to follow that up with a similar round.
And joining him, Teemu Lampainen, tying that 8 under hot round in round 1. He is known to have really strong performances throughout Finnish Nationals history, and coming up in second place last year, he's hunting those podiums again on lead card.
And next up, possibly a newer name to some of our international viewers, Ville Ahokas. A very solid player, especially a super good putter. He has clean, spinny putting stroke and has really high potential to score, especially from Circle 2.
And another really incredible putter here joining our lead card, Miro Ryhänen, a young man which many people have gotten to know recently off his win at the Åland Open just last weekend. Very well-rounded game and great composure on the course.
And we are going to start the round on one of the easiest holes on the course. Hole 1 is only 84 meters, even playing slightly downhill. But the OB is what makes this hole difficult. You have the OB creek on short and on the left side of the green, also some OB long. It's playing as a big island, and if you miss this island go OB, you're proceeding to the drop zone that is about 12 meters away, putting straight towards OB. It's a pretty simple hyzer shot, but difficult to get it parked.
Sponsoroima, kaksinkertainen ja hallitseva Suomen mestari, Niklas Anttila.
Your reigning, defending Finnish national champion here, Niklas Anttila, to get us started.
I believe going with a Discmania Mutant. It looks like a good line, a nice safe shot. Not trying to park the hole, but he's well in the circle there. Pretty good result there. Should be a simple putt.
Yeah, great use of the overstability to control the distance and move left significantly. We see a justice here from Teemu. Likely going to be aiming for a similar line, very similar disc. We see a little bit more height, which will allow him to fade more left, but just pushing those final trees, he sneaks his way up to about bullseye's edge. A great throw.
Ahokas.
The difference between Niklas and Teemu there is that Teemu really pushed the short side. You can see he almost even tickled some of the branches in the tree. And that is pretty scary to do on this hole, but that's the only way you're gonna be parked. Let's see if Ville here. He's also going pretty inside. Very aggressive line. Just needs to be the right distance. And he has actually gone OB long. He's gonna have to go to the drop zone and have a difficult par putt.
And that's an extra element of choosing to play that inside hyzer, the width really allowing people to not try to park it, as you mentioned, but especially for putters of this caliber, place themselves safely into circle 1 while mitigating the risk that comes with those trees, as well as OB left. We see Miro here also pretty inside, and battling between the trees has absolutely parked it. He doesn't need that circle 1 putt, as he will be starting with a stress-free birdie. We see Ville up first now from the OB, a putt for par. Drop zone.
And this is directly towards OB. He misses it, but looks like he has actually stayed safe. And Niklas here, important putt to start off the round on the right foot, and he does. Well done there. It's one of the more intimidating basket positions on this course, as pretty much from most angles you're putting at the basket, you're going straight towards OB, and especially with this elevated basket, if you miss it, the chance of going OB on the putt is pretty high.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a little bit of an island hole. Also very polarizing, common on this sort of shot that you take a 2 or a 4. The 3 is, of course, possibility, but less likely. A great hole to get started.
Yeah, it's a pretty nervy hole, and good to see where your head is at the start of the round. And we're moving on to another one of the easier holes. Hole 2, only 159 meters, par 4. On the first shot you're trying to throw just a short pitch up to the edge of that inbounds area, which if you execute it well, which everybody on the card most likely will, they're gonna be left with about a 90 meter hyzer. Most players going for the hyzer gap as it is the most open one. Important to control your speed though, because that OB on the long side comes into play pretty quickly. It is inside the circle.
In round 1, we saw Niklas with a very low release, slightly more height here, more of a traditional chip hyzer, and right in that sweet spot, not pushing the OB line at all, but enough distance to have a full hyzer into the green. Teemu also playing that forehand hyzer. Interesting to note that we see from both Niklas and Teemu, who are the current leaders, very similar shot shapes and disc choice throughout the tournament. They're often emulating similar lines on these holes. Of course, on this one, many players just playing the chip hyzer, but especially disc choice is quite similar.
And Miro here on the opposite side. It was not the windiest day. There was some rains, a little showers of rain throughout the day. But the wind was mostly a little bit down, and if there was wind on this hole, it's coming from right to left. So you can see Ville's disc getting pushed towards the left side, but he's in bounds, as is everybody on the card. And the second shot is really where most of the difference is made on this hole. Teemu here going for that wide hyzer, a very good looking line. And look at that result, just 5 meters away. Well done there.
A great backstop on that tree. Looking quite favorable to try and crash into. We will see Niklas now. As you touched on, Elias, slight right to left wind here, using the width appropriately. Very important to access the green in a clean way. And Niklas just a little bit short, but getting a skip up. He will have a low ceiling to contend with around that last tree, just a few meters beyond Teemu's. Ville now.
Ville also looks a little bit tight on the hyzer. And he's gonna also end up short left. It's a pretty common place to land. People don't really want to push the width, as there is OB also on the right side of the basket. And if you end up OB on the right side, you will have to rethrow on this short side of the fairway. And Miro there, even pushing the right side OB, but getting a good favorable left finish, and he's gonna have just outside the circle for his birdie.
Niklas up first here, opting to drop to the knee to open up the height. And a good bid, but just a touch low with that ceiling. Difficult to get it nose up completely with enough glide the whole way. We see Miro now. Came up a little bit shy, but in a great spot with an open putt, and he finds the weak side, sliding out.
That's almost a little bit surprising, especially from Miro, as he's one of the strongest putters you're gonna see. And talking about strong putters, already touched on that in the intro a little bit, but Ville there with a great putt. He's often very confident on the green, and he has that spinny delivery. So any small wind that we might have today is gonna be no problem for him. Able to cut through the wind with that good spin and small nose up. As Niklas here is making his par putt.
All of these 4 players, amazing putters in their own right. Interesting to see the variation in technique used, especially in less ideal weather and winds. Teemu there with also quite a spinny putt, a lot of hyzer release, finding his birdie and taking the solo lead here in round 2 at 10 under with a perfect start so far.
That's the kind of start you want. Really, the first 5 holes on this course is the most scoreable stretch. Holes 1 through 5 are all playing pretty simple, and especially for the top of the field, you want to get 2, 3, 4 or even 5 birdies on this first 5 holes. As we're moving on to the longest one of the first 5, at least as far as par 3s or the length of the shot required. It's 118 meters, playing a little bit shorter though, with the slight downhill grade and also a slight tailwind. You're most likely looking to throw either a slightly understable mid-range or a slightly understable fairway driver. Hit it towards the left side pine tree and hopefully take just a small turn to find yourself inside the circle.
We see Teemu up first, relying on that understable backhand flight, pushing it around the corner, looking to find some late fade into this. He's pushed it a bit long, but a very nice shape to match the fairway and completes its full flight.
Yeah, Teemu even going long with the mid-range, really showing off some good power, but also the tailwind that we had on this hole. And Ville, on the other hand, going fairway driver, not quite getting the turn. That is going to be a tough putt from there. Not a lot of distance. He's definitely going to be inside circle 2 there, but not what you want on this hole, on either Teemu's or Ville's drive.
No, but a very characteristic flight for the tailwind. We see Niklas looking to make the adjustment here, and it looks like he has beautiful command of the Anheuser turnover with the late fade. Great line and perfect use of that wind there. Miro now has been shown the line. We'll see if he can emulate it. Looks to have a slightly sharper disc than the mid-range in his hand.
Gets a nice turn there. Not quite getting the fade back, but he's gonna be right there, I believe, inside the edge of the circle. Should be no problem for him. And Ville here, just having to lay up. It's one of the windier greens on the course, with that elevated basket especially. You can see Teemu here putting into a right to left wind. It's a scary putt for his hyzer angle release.
And you see it get beat up there. Exposing the flight plate, as you mentioned, with that hyzer release will give him a lot more difficulty. Some players may opt to go with a more Anheuser angle. Miro Ryhänen straight into the chains, though. Really nice putt there, especially after that slight miss on hole 2. That is a great comeback putt, really showing what he's made of on the green. Niklas now for his birdie into what looks like headwind. So with that elevation, that nose-up angle can find some trouble quickly. But no worries for him.
Yeah, no trouble there. Niklas also a player with a lot of spin on the putter. Looks like it's a common theme on the card. Everybody putting with good pace and good spin. That was really the recipe for a good putting round in round 2 here at the Mukkula Disc Golf Park. Shout out to former 2-time Finnish champion Pasi Koivu for designing this difficult track that is not obviously starting off very difficult, but we're gonna get to some more difficulty in a while. Not really starting yet though on hole 4. Once again, pretty manageable distance for being a par 3. The only trouble on this hole is the OB left and OB long possibly, if you really crush it. Most players are trying to throw a straight shot or a slightly hyzer towards the right side of the fairway with a stable disc, hopefully get their fade in before this last birch tree on the right. Most players ending up slightly on the right side of the basket to avoid that left side OB. But it's really a dealer's choice. You can choose almost whatever disc you like. as long as it's not too understable to hold up in this left to right wind that we had on this hole.
Niklas finding the fade and the stability just in time when he needed it. A beautiful delivery to the green there. As you mentioned, just straight flying with a touch of right to left movement at the end of the flight. We'll see Miro now.
Yep, expecting a very similar shot here. And he's going for a similar shot, although this looks to be pushing a bit long, but what a good tree kick there. Hitting the last birch on the right side. That tree is actually pin high almost, so very good kick from Miro not to go and challenge that long OB.
Teemu throwing with a significantly higher line, although that will increase the fade, and as a result you see him finding left side OB. Will have a putt remaining for his potential par save, but definitely not a hole that you want to find a penalty stroke on, averaging 2.78. Definitely, as you mentioned, Elias, one of the easier on this early stretch, and a very attackable 99-meter par 3. You see a solid shot there towards the tree line, but not completing the full fade for Ville.
Yep, and Ville is going to be up here first. Pretty calm on the flag here, and he takes advantage from just outside the circle. Well done there.
So we get to take another look at Ville's spin putt technique. Just straight from the chest, a touch of nose up and a lot of rotations. You see that contribute to a laser putt to the chains. A really smooth style.
Teemu here gonna have just a pretty short putt for the par. Important putt to make your par here. You do not want to take any bogeys on these first holes, as surprisingly he has actually missed it and even kicked about as far away as he was on the last one. Let's see, this is possibly even a nervier putt, although he makes good work of that. Pretty confident release there. But gonna drop one more stroke back to Niklas, who is almost certainly going to take a birdie here, as Miro will as well.
Yeah, a little bit of the changing of the seats with that two-stroke swing. Niklas and Miro left with short tap-ins, textbook tee shots, and they will now take first and second place respectively.
And guess what? It's another short hole, as we're completing the first easy stretch on this course. Just 75 meters, it's a true tunnel shot, with those two Mandos at the beginning of the flight forcing you to go down the middle, not really coming into play for most players, as you're trying to throw a straight, most likely a straight putter shot, depending on the wind. Some people might end up going with a more overstable approach disc, as quite often there's a headwind on this hole, and actually today there was also a headwind on this one. I believe the height control is very difficult on this one, not that much of the angle.
Niklas up first, hitting the tunnel beautifully, finding that late fade, as you mentioned, relying on overstability to have a consistent flight path and not risk any potential turnover. A very nice shot. We see Miro now. This is a great hole to test players' speed control and use of the low speed disc. Miro going really low, but getting some great ground play up into the circle as well.
Yep, well done there. That's something you can do on this hole. The ground is pretty fast. There's a lot of dry grass before the basket, so you don't have to even challenge that ceiling. As Ville is actually doing exactly that, but he has pushed past the basket, even going with a mid-range here to try and get that distance with a low ceiling. And he's gonna have a tailwind putt from just outside the circle here.
Teemu shaping a very soft flex. Turning over through the tunnel nicely. Just flattens out, doesn't have enough height to actually fade left, but more than enough to get himself into a healthy position for his birdie putt. Hole 5 was the only one on the day that over half of the MPO field found the birdie on. Unfortunately, Ville there just a touch low after firing long off the tee.
And you can see the nose up on Ville's putt getting pushed down by the tailwind quite significantly compared to the flatter style, flatter nose angle of the other players, as Niklas there just taps it in. Looking pretty relaxed on the start of the round, already going 4 under through the first 5. And Teemu here smashing it in the basket. That's something you can do in these Prodigy baskets, as they have a lot of chains in the middle, not a lot of center spit outs.
And potentially a mental adjustment for him after the green of the previous hole. Miro with his classic putt as well, matching Niklas perfectly so far throughout the round, 4 down through 5. Both of them bogey free.
And that's gonna be it for the first 5 holes, as we already have got some scoring separation, but that's gonna be even a bigger of a theme going forward as we move on to the first par 5 hole of the course. 289 meters. On the first shot you're trying to throw a pretty conservative flat to hyzer shot with an overstable disc, trying to just land on the fairway. On your second, you're trying to do something pretty similar, pushing this right side tree line that we're flying past and hopefully landing in the middle of the fairway, opening up a pretty risky approach. You're going over the OB the whole way, and the OB only ending inside the circle on the short side. On the left side of the basket you have more room to work with. But this hole is just about staying on the fairway and at the very end doing a good, accurate, touchy approach, as we see Niklas here with just safe overstable hyzer.
Center cut there and solid position to get around the bend on his second. Miro a touch more inside, not as much width, and we see that lifting. That may find trouble on the left side, battling the line. He is, in fact, out of bounds. We saw the width from Niklas keeping him much safer. Miro with, unfortunately, a bit of an unforced error there.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising. It's a very wide fairway, although there was this right to left headwind on the hole. So if you're throwing a pure hyzer, you have to throw it pretty far to the right. As we see Teemu doing exactly that, and even still the disc moving closer towards the left side OB. But that is just perfectly in the middle. Good shot and setting up for a pretty similar shot on the next.
Ville having the privilege of the other players throwing 3 first, giving him a good understanding of the conditions, matches those safe hyzers to the center fairway. As we'll see Miro up first, not only does he find the penalty stroke, but he's more pinched around the corner on his second due to being on the left of the fairway. He'll have to push this backside tree line to progress as much as he wants to.
And the OB left coming into play pretty easily. Almost dust for Miro there, but he's gonna have a good chance to save his par from there. It's only about 90 meters left. Pretty much the prime landing zone for the second shot, and I'm sure Niklas is also aiming for a similar spot, although ideally trying to land a little bit more right to avoid the risk of that OB line, which he almost finds, but just stays clear of.
Yeah, a lot of these guys using the overstable high-speed discs to get slightly around this corner, but as a result also finding pretty significant ground play towards that left side. Ville catching a branch and settling him right in the center. Not as much distance as the others, but slightly more to the right will open up that shortcut gap to the green. And Teemu now.
We saw in the last round Teemu was trying to push this shot pretty far, and looks like that's exactly what he's doing again. Pushing it down the right side, and he's perfectly in the middle. Only a short putter or approach shot from there. Well done from Teemu, just tearing apart the first 2 shots on the hole.
Yeah, on both rounds, a great game plan and great execution alongside. That's what you want to see. We see Ville now on his 3rd shot. This has a lot of height. As he hits the gap pretty cut and dry, you'll see this fade out way too early though, and with a lot of speed left on it. Fires well OB, and he'll be left with a par save for himself as well from just about circle's edge. We see Miro from quite a favorable position. Being on the left does open up the pure hyzer rather than the slightly more straight shot from the right side fairway. But we see the height on this just contending with that last guardian and not enough to find itself in bounds.
That is the worst mistake you can do on the approach. So pretty unfortunate there from Miro, and he's gonna be throwing, I believe, for his 6th shot from this short side of the OB. And Niklas just barely getting over the OB. That is a pretty fortunate break to get over, as it is going to be at least a 2-stroke swing between Miro and Niklas.
And we see the value of Teemu's 2 amazing shots. He had a wide open look and a significantly shorter distance than the others approaching to the green. Looked very easy for him, and he's right up there with a fairly manageable putt for birdie. Miro now scrambling with the forehand approach, I think trying to give that a solid bid, as he has already taken 2 penalty strokes on here on hole 6, one of the hardest on the course. He's really trying to salvage now what's left of this hole and move on with as little damage as possible. We'll see Ville for his par save after going OB on the approach. And so healthy, just a great height and a great pace.
Wow, that's very impressive, especially putting straight towards OB. Let's take a slow motion look at that. Look at this, Ville was putting less speed on the disc compared to normal, and just dropping it in the basket even with that nose up angle. Really well done there. And Miro
I think
here.
a sign of a great putter, being able to modulate that speed and height and angles. Miro finds his putt there, fortunately, but unfortunately taking the double bogey. 5 throws with 2 penalty strokes. This is Niklas for his birdie. And he is on a very strong performance. The first hole of round 1 where Niklas and Miro have separated in score. Up until hole 5 had played exactly the same, at least on the scorecards.
Yeah, separating in a pretty big way. It's obviously way too early to make any sort of assumptions about who is going to take down the victory, as we're only on the 2nd of 4 rounds. But Niklas getting a bit of a cushion. That's the sort of momentum that you have to build on if you want to give yourself a chance to win this event. Moving on to hole 7. Another very birdieable hole, but on this one there's a lot of bogey potential. It's 120 meters, pretty much open. You only have these 2 trees on the right side that are blocking the full hyzer. You kind of have to play hyzer just in front of them, hopefully land on the grass and avoid both of the right and the left OB bunker. It's very often do we see people landing in the bunkers on their drive and having a long circle 2 look for the par.
Niklas now has developed a 2-stroke lead over Teemu in 2nd. And he hits that narrowing beautifully, and a great control of the speed as well to not even contend with that back slope behind the green. An amazing shot, and he is looking very well composed, trying to find his 5th birdie in a row.
And Teemu with a much wider line, showing off some of that arm speed that he's got. And what a perfect shot there. Just fading before the birch trees. Getting that small skip. And that's another great way to play this hole, and especially to control the distance. If you're a player with more power and you want to throw still with full power. Many people are going for this right side line, but Ville has turned it way over. And this has almost no chance to coming back inbounds. That is a pretty big misfire there. He's not even gonna have a great look at the basket for the par as he has gone out so early.
Yeah, we saw a very early and severe turn from that flight. Miro with an incredible shot, just fighting the edge of the bunker and absolutely parked within bullseye. A great bounce back after his struggles on hole 6. You touched on his win at the Island Open, Elias, that he has a great mental game, and we see that in full display right there.
And Ville here, having throw a full-blown approach from about 50, but he does good work of that. Gonna drop only one bogey stroke here, and Ville is going to be even par through 7, which is far from ideal, especially with these other guys scoring birdie after birdie. And Niklas here to go 6 under through 7, which he of course does. It's not a putt you see Niklas missing, at least not very often.
He's putting together an incredible round. Ville, as you mentioned, not quite as hot throughout this front 9, but has had some great moments. Teemu quietly sneaking himself to 4 down through the round. 5 birdies with only a single bogey. And Miro with the umbrella putt, he's so close, doesn't need to worry about it. Puts that glove right back on. Moves on with his birdie. Tries to negate some of the damage of hole 6, and he's on his way.
Yeah, pretty well done by the card to have 3 essentially tap in birdies on hole 7. But moving on to 8, that is not what we would expect from the card, as it is playing 129 meters in distance but going 11 meters uphill, and most of that uphill coming at the very last 20 meters of the hole. You either have this straight gap that the drone is flying through, or if you have a massive arm, you can even go for the more of a flat to hyzering line. The majority of the field not having the distance to get into circle 1, and especially not park this hole. So most of these guys are playing for a circle 2 look and hopefully make it from around 10 to 15 meters.
Yeah, with quite a friendly green, you really can give it a chance up the hill. Niklas Anttila with a beautiful line, shaping the full flight turnover once again, using the width of the initial fairway to go on that left side and use that long turn to get distance, fight up the hill. Teemu also opting for the more inside line, but this has not been turned over enough. Finding a pretty early fade, he will be out there in the trees and will have many small gaps to contend with in order to get to the green. That will even be a difficult par from there.
Yeah, difficult par is not exactly what you want on this one, as it's normally a very easy hole to par. Not a lot of danger. The only danger is, well, going to those left side trees that Teemu did go into. As we see a pretty nice line with Miro's drive. He was actually going around the right side, and he's gonna have a circle 2 look of his own. Very common result on this hole. I believe even the majority of the field ending up in circle 2, as there was actually 52% of the field inside of circle 2, but only 9% of those, or 9% of the field being in circle 1.
Yeah, requiring tons of power and an incredibly precise line. We see Ville shake his head at that bid. But as you mentioned, very common result here. A circle 2 chance. Good scramble from Teemu, had quite some open gaps actually, had fought through more into the tree line than initially looked like. Miro from downtown with a good line, but a lot of power required to get it from that distance uphill. Niklas closest of the bunch, still able to salvage this birdie. He currently has 5 in a row, and this would be a huge statement in this lead card action to continue to separate himself from the field. So close.
Wow. That would have been a great birdie. And for Niklas, who is not particularly well known for being a huge distance thrower, being able to get to that 10-meter mark is pretty impressive. Gotta give props to Niklas for developing some good power over the past couple of years. As we're gonna see just 4 tap-in pars, which is kind of to be expected on this hole. We would obviously like to see a highlight birdie, but that takes, as we said, just a huge drive.
And just some formalities now. Elias, would you like to guess what percentage of the field took par on this hole today?
Must be a very high percentage. I would assume probably somewhere over 70%.
Absolutely. It sat at an even 80, with the last 10% on either side going birdie bogey. So 80% of the field, 4 out of 5 players taking the 3. You can see just why as we move to the final hole of the front 9. What do we have?
Yeah, hole 9. Another hole that is definitely not playing as far as hole 8, but a very tricky angle to hit. You need to throw a high turnover shot that not only turns over all the way, but also kind of glides backwards at the end of the flight. Need to throw something very high that never fades back. Most likely a mid-range or a putter with slight understability or just a lot of anhyzer angle. Niklas here going exactly for that, going for an understable MD3. But this looks to have been turned a little bit even too much compared to the height, not quite getting the glide towards the right. And he's gonna have a pretty simple approach, but pretty much no chance for the birdie, unless he throws it in from 30, which is, for Niklas, not unheard of.
Teemu now. Significantly more height than Niklas, allowing a longer turn and more likely to flatten out towards the end of the flight. He hits the very last tree in his way and will be left with a circle 2 open look towards the basket. A really precise line and perfect angle control required to get through cleanly. Miro takes a quick look at his feet as if he slipped, and we see that turning a touch too early, catches the right side, still leaving him about 50 or so to the green.
Yeah, it's a tough tee pad. The tee pad not particularly slick, but as we saw, there was some rain during the last couple of holes. And Ville here also going slightly too far to the inside. Miro here actually with a pretty good kick back to the fairway. He's gonna have just a regular approach here with the forehand. That is gonna be within putting distance, but not quite parked. He's gonna have some work left to do there.
Yeah, we saw his counter skip off the last route. Did not get that final flare to the right that I'm sure he wanted to reduce the distance on his putt. And a great shot there, shaping the forehand. Spiking one in. We see Niklas, his look now from the left side tree line. A long stepper.
Pretty respectable effort there, but not quite to be. And tell me, Connor, because this seems like a hole that also creates a lot of pars as we're looking Teemu, closest of the group, still almost 20 meters away. What's the par count on this one?
You are very correct in your analysis, Elias. This had a 77% par rate. Only 5% of the field finding that elusive birdie 2. Just a really demanding, significant movement to the right. And such a skinny tunnel. We see a great par save from Miro there. And actually, holes 8, 9, 10, and 11, all averaging really high par counts. They're opportunities for the best of the field to try and separate themselves and snag those extra difficult birdie 2s. Teemu now for his par.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of the stretch where you can really separate yourself from the field. If you get even 1 or 2 birdies, out of the holes 8 to 11. You're gonna have a great time as Teemu. Wow, that's a bit of a head scratcher. Hitting the cage and just barely popping his disc inside the basket there. It's a good way to end your front nine, and Teemu had a pretty respectable score of 4 under. Not quite matching Niklas's scorching hot 6 under though. Wow, what a front nine from Niklas.
Absolutely incredible. You see, he really hit his stride throughout holes 3 and 7 with an incredible birdie streak. Ville securing his par and still sitting at even for the round. The back nine playing is a little bit more difficult if he wants to continue to fight towards those podium positions. There's still time, but he'll need to switch it on.
And that's gonna be it for the front nine. We already mentioned Niklas shooting a great 6 under front nine, and that is gonna take him to the leading position. 2 strokes over Teemu, who also started the round tied for the lead. And Miro there making some good birdies, but not the hottest front nine, as actually Lauri Lehtinen has put his way up to the 4th position on the leaderboard. A lot of names behind that. It's still a very tight battle, and on the back nine anything can happen. Thank you, Connor, for doing commentary with me, and thank you guys for watching. If you want to support MDG, you can do that on Patreon, or if you don't want to pay, you can just like and subscribe and comment on the video. Tell us what you think of the coverage, what you think of the course. Thank you, Connor. It was a pleasure, and see you guys on the back nine.
Thank you, Elias, and thank you to our viewers.